chat can hear us.
Okay, very good. So that wasn't a very smooth start to the first one, but at least we've figured out how to do it now.
Baby steps.
Did you hear any of what I said?
Nope, you'll have to say.
Not really, no.
Okay, that's awkward. Right. So Laura covered a little bit there, but I basically just said we're going to do something a bit different this week with a question and answer. We've got some questions that have been submitted from our followers and previous listeners, so we're just going to run through. I'm going to run through the questions, and we're going to just go around and have a little discussion. So the first question we had, I did read it out, but obviously nobody heard me. So the first question we had was from Joshua_911. I'm going to direct this to Laura, but we'll all have a chat about it. This is about plans for the future of the Defend Europa project. He asked, do we plan to have writers from other European countries? And have we got any plans to cover the EU election next year? So Laura, you're central to the project and everybody knows that. So I'll let you kick that one off first.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm just getting the question up so I can. So any plans for Defend Europa for the future? So we're growing quite fast at the moment. We only started in February 2017, and there was about 5 people that started it, and we now have around 35 people. So at Defend Europa, we have people in England, Scotland. You guys can chip in if I miss any countries. Italy, Croatia, Poland, Germany, France. Which ones have I missed? We haven't got Hungary and we haven't got Sweden. Those are the 2 that we need. But plans, yeah, we've got quite a few things in the pipeline. Obviously, we've got the podcast. We have an episode out every Monday or Tuesday, rather. And the articles are doing well. We do get like millions of clicks on the website. We've been quoted in the European Parliament, and politicians even reference us sometimes. One thing that we spoke about when we first started was in real life activism, and I think that is still an area that we'd like to move into, some kind of do you know, like, perhaps something that like Generation Identity do. But the difficulty for us is that we're spread out all over Europe, so we're self-funded as well, so we fund Defend Europa ourselves. So I guess we'd all have to meet in one country to do something. That's it really. Do you have anything else to add, William, about plans for the future?
Yeah, well, obviously, to answer Joshua's question directly on the European elections, we are going to deal with those on our Twitter, and I'm sure we'll talk about it on the podcast as well. So we are going to cover it in a manner of speaking. But I think something Laura alluded to, what Generation Identity do. One of the problems that we have, of course, is that, as somebody just brought this up in the chat, but one of the problems that we have is that there are a lot of groups competing and doing the same thing. So it's difficult to decide to do something that's not going to be stepping on somebody else's toes, because we don't want to we don't want to try and penetrate an oversaturated market. So it's difficult in terms of on the street activism, but we're definitely going to keep doing what we're doing with the website. Hopefully look at broadening the scope of that, so we talk about other things aside from just politics and culture. We'll talk about some other things like healthy eating and whatever. But I would say we'll be guided in that by our viewers, and if there's something that a particularly large number of our viewers want us to focus on, and there's a market for it, then we're open to suggestion there. I'd say that. Boris, what do you think?
Yeah, just to jump in, another thing we have going on still, is the what does it mean to be sort of mini project from Alex's side. So what we do there is we're trying to have some audience engagement and have people from all over the continent just do a concise article, and in it you just explain what your culture is like and what it really has always meant to be, I don't know, Swedish or German or Polish or whatever, the whole continent.
Yeah, that's going pretty well actually. We've done, is it 2 or 3 countries so far? So we don't want to be kind of one of those, those clickbait kind of websites where it's like migrant rape somebody or riot in this country. We don't kind of want just those stories all the time. We try and look at things a little bit deeper, maybe who's behind the scenes, a bit of political theory. And we also try to focus on things like we do a lot of book reviews. We're starting the cooking, the recipe section soon. And we like to talk about things like history and artwork and philosophy and things. So we kind of want to stray away from that whole, like the effect of the migrant crisis. And we want to talk more about the cause and who's behind it. And I think, everybody that's listening probably knows what I mean by that. But we do talk openly about that. But we don't go like, full on 1488 trying to be hardcore and offensive and stuff. We do talk about it we try to talk about it in a factual and intellectual way. But we also want to talk about solutions as well. So that can be anything ranging from how do we get an ethno state all the way down to personal self-improvement and being the best version of yourselves. So that's kind of the direction that we're going in. I hope that's an okay answer for you guys.
Yeah, I think just reading the chat, I think people are kind of in agreement with some of the things we're saying on that. Yeah, I'm just following it a little bit. I think we've done that one. So I'm going to move on to this one. Is really interesting. I love this question, actually. I can't even pronounce the dude's username, but some anonymous asks, what do you guys think of separatism as a way to create nationalist holds in globalist infected countries? Now, I've heard so many different takes on this. It's unbelievable, especially when Catalonia was doing its whole "we want independence" thing. And I think my opinion on it's changed, because originally I thought this might be a good idea, but one of the problems we have with balkanization is that, for one, it's tantamount to surrender. So I'm kind of against it on principle, but also I think divide and conquer is a particular weapon of the ruling establishment, and you can see it in the money that went into the Catalonia thing. There was a lot of Soros money there. Scottish independence is such a leftist quirk in this country, so personally, I don't think there's much validity to the idea. Maybe something like Oranje if things got really bad, but I mean, what do you guys think? I don't really like the idea.
I'm totally against it as well, and just basically because of is it united we stand, divided we fall thing. I think as nation states we're pretty weak anyway, especially when you look at things like the European Union. And I think to just break us up into even smaller parts, I'm against it. And they're actually trying to do it in Yorkshire at the moment. They're trying to get a Yorkshire mayor and centralise everything up north in Yorkshire. And the way that they frame it is quite clever. They say things like, you don't want those southerners making all the decisions for you, do you? And northern people love that because there is a bit of a north-south divide. But who's to say that what we end up with would be any better than what we've got now? We'd just be weaker because we're smaller. But the impression that I got from the question was perhaps it's talking about maybe in the future a little bit more when things are worse. Maybe if acceleration kicks in and the white share of the population will drop, would it be an option then? And maybe it would be. I guess it depends how bad things get and whether we need to start again, to be honest.
Well, in my opinion, separatism in any form should be definitely avoided, because as you've both already mentioned, our nation states are so weak, and there's just not a national consciousness like there was before, definitely. So, well, in the future, things are likely to change because of demographics. Minorities will just take over, or they might try to take over swaths of territory, and then they might try to secede, and in that case, it could come to conflict. But this idea of, I've heard it talked about in especially American circles, like some people say, let's just give the South to the Hispanics or whatever, or let's just give a part of the South to the blacks. Like, in my humble opinion, that just it's not a good way forward. It will destroy the whatever little strength that the nation has on the world stage, and yeah, it'll just make it very easy for multinational bodies like the EU to manipulate us all.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And, I think all of the general consensus here is that divide and rule is a strategy that we need to oppose because it's being done to us. I mean, in a hypothetical situation in the future, who knows what's going to happen, but we don't have the luxury of entertaining niche ideas like this at the moment. We just don't have the luxury at all. So I think the resounding answer to that question is thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to move on to another question. This is interesting as well because weirdly enough, this actually splits opinion. I don't know how, but it does. So Croative1 from Twitter asks, how important, in your eyes, are politicians like Viktor Orban and Matteo Salvini for the reawakening of Europe? You guys, I'm going to give that one to you. What do you think?
Personally, I think that they're important. And the reason is because we need gateways. I know it's an obvious answer, but we need a pathway between normie land and completely red-pilled. So if everybody's just like completely woke, then I think that's a little bit too intimidating for people that aren't, like politically attuned at all. And I don't think they're likely to join us. I mean, my pathway was I started off as a conservative. Bless you. I started off as a conservative, and then it was like the anti-jihad, that there's problem with Islam stuff, and then moved to race, and then moved to the JQ. So I think that if everybody's just fully woke, then people don't come over. I think you need those pathways. And I don't have a problem with people who don't talk about controversial topics. Like, for example, the Iconoclast. I think his YouTube channel is absolutely brilliant. And the great thing about Dan is that he doesn't counter-signal anybody else. So he passes people over to us. And he never slags off the alt-right or anything like that. But then you do get gateways, people like Paul Joseph Watson and Sargon, who just criticises all the time and just want to keep everybody in that little classical liberal bubble. So I think people like Salvini and Orban are important. Orban seems a little bit more woke than Salvini. I know Salvini's been pictured with an Israeli flag a few times, but then you don't know the situation of why they're posing with it, do you? I'd rather focus on what he's doing and what he's saying, and he's done a lot of good things. So yeah, I don't know if you guys agree, but I'm all for promoting people like those guys.
Boris?
Yeah, I agree there. For example, the way I think we should do it, like a general policy, we should just bring our message across and try not to criticize others. Just don't go out of your way to criticize others in the broader sort of movement, right? Because everyone has there's a red pill process. You don't wake up one day just completely woke on everything. There are levels to the rabbit hole. So, and all those the alt-right, for example, and libertarians and the more nationalist type people, it just comes in levels and waves, and the best thing to do is just talk about your ideas and let the progression happen.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with those points. I think people have to remember about, especially Salvini, that he's under intense public scrutiny. So when you see things that you think, oh, that's a bit soft, or oh, he's cozying up to Zionists, I think people have got to think that maybe he's playing the game. Maybe I'm wrong, and he's actually not what we want. But there's always the possibility he's just playing the system so that they don't chuck him out of it. So I think it's hard. It's difficult to judge these guys too critically. And to directly answer the question, I think that they're very important because they're saying things on the global stage that we could only dream of being able to say on the global stage. They're a voice for people like us. So yeah, they're doing great work.
And Salvini as well. Sorry, just to jump in, he does talk about repatriation. So it's not like he's just one of the. I mean, look at our Conservatives in Britain, who say that they will try to put net immigration to 100,000. Salvini actually does say stuff like, all this money that we send into migrants, we're going to stop sending it to them and we're going to give it to Italians. And he talks about sending people back home. So I think they do good work, to be fair.
Yeah, definitely. Are you guys all right if I move on to the next point?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, go for it.
Right, so I'm just going to find where I was in the questions, because there's a couple more that we had in earlier that I wanted to look at, because there was something interesting going on here. Where are we? Right, so this is from Darth. How do we stop the forming of an EU army? It's kind of difficult because, well, the question is difficult, but also the answer is difficult because really, when Brussels wants to do something, they'll do it, and it's difficult to form any concerted opposition to it. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because it's something that we definitely don't want, but you just feel powerless, really, don't you? I mean, we want to leave the European Union as a country, but they're screwing that up for us. So it's not like you can vote for something and then expect to get the results, because they only respect democracy when it goes their way. So how can we stop them? I'm actually, I don't have an answer because I don't know. If anybody in the chat has some thoughts on that, feel free to type it into the chat, because it would be good to know. I just don't know how you stop like totalitarian establishments doing things that you don't want them to do, because it just feels like they're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, I don't see how we can really. I mean, what would be good is in the European Parliament elections next year, we have a chance to speak out against it and vote for parties who are, if not want to leave the European Union, are against the European army. And my guess would be that after the European Parliament elections next year, there'll be a majority in the European Parliament against forming an EU army. The problem is the Parliament. I mean, if it could make any real change, it wouldn't exist. They wouldn't let us do it. Everybody knows the European Parliament is a show parliament, which has no executive power. It's the EU Commission that dictates this stuff, and they will do it, and they'll either buy off the Parliament or bypass them totally. So really, it's. I don't want to sound black-pilled on this, but I think it's a case of picking your battles, and at the present, there isn't the political will to force it through quickly, and therefore we should focus on other more pressing matters for the time being. I don't know. What do you think on that, Boris?
Well, yeah, I agree with your points. I don't really see a way to stop them from doing it. But it's just interesting to note that the two countries that are historical rivals and antagonists for so long, France and Germany, now their leaders, like just today, Merkel came out in support of the EU army, and Macron was for it for a long time. So it's just interesting to see that dichotomy joining to do something like that.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting developments, whether we can do much about it or not, I think. I'm going to move on to something a bit more contentious now, a question I had from a friend earlier. So this is about, you guys, if you're from the UK, you'll definitely know about this, but if you're from mainland Europe, you probably will, but I'll tell you anyway. So there was a conviction in a British court yesterday of a couple who were convicted of being members of the band. I'm going to say this how they say it, so just bear with me. The band neo-Nazi terrorist organization, National Action. And so, a bit of background, there's a rumor surfacing that National Action was either started or funded indirectly by the British security services, MI5 and the like, as a way of is using it as a pretext for political repression of the right. My friend asked, do we think that MI5 played a part in the creation or the funding, directly or indirectly, of National Action? And if so, how can we trust radical groups when they do pop up? Because we know that this could be an issue. So, Laura, you're from Britain, so you know about this case. What do you think of that?
Yeah, well, it has kind of just been a disaster from start to finish, hasn't it? And it's like, it's turned into a bit of a comedy sketch, because everything that they possibly could have done wrong, they've done wrong. It's been embarrassing, really. And they do share a lot of similar views with what we share. I definitely think that they've been infiltrated in some way. I don't know if it's MI5, but I definitely think that they have. Actually, Morgoth tweeted something very interesting about saying that if they didn't exist, the establishment would probably have to create something like that, because they're just the perfect scapegoat. And my other friend sent me a screenshot of the BBC page today, and there were lots of articles about National Action, and there was one every single day, and there were such stupid little stories, like, I think you're in the group chat actually as well, William. There were things like, this guy admits that he's racist, or National Action had this magnet on his fridge, or photograph of that. Do you know, just like really stupid stories? And they never do that when it's an Islamic terrorist. So obviously they want to paint these guys in a really, really bad light because they're nationalists, and obviously the establishment are against nationalism. So I think that for it to have ended up the level of a disaster that it is, I definitely think that there's something dodgy there, and there's some sort of that bad, because nobody makes that many mistakes. What do you think?
Yeah, you know, I think the whole thing smells pretty bad, because I mean, these guys were not stupid lads. Some of them were university educated, and so I mean, they were pretty radical, and I don't doubt the sincerity of their beliefs. I do think, though, that they had helped to become so prominent in the media, and they were used as a tool to, you know, to pass the laws and for political repression of the right. So I do think there's a bit of that involved, and if it wasn't by design, it was by circumstance. That's for sure. You know, and now, because they didn't just have crazy views; they also had some views that a lot of nationalists have. Now, all of a sudden, it just makes people even more afraid. And I tell you what's interesting is the BBC did this hit job on them, and this article about the conviction, and they delved into the background of these people convicted, which, okay, fair enough, they do it with criminals, but the extent to which they did it and this stupid minutiae of their lives that they put all over the internet, it struck me as them just saying, this is all the shit we can find out about you, so don't you be thinking the wrong things, because we can find out everything you've ever Googled, or something like that. So yeah, I think there's definitely some, I don't know whether it's collusion or dirty tricks or what, but there's something going on there that doesn't smell right, you know. I believe. Another
thing as well, Sarah, is that there are people undercover in our community all over the place, and I know it sounds like I've got a bit mad saying that, but I went to a conference in Britain last year, and there were two undercover people there, one from Hope Not Hate and one from Vice. You know, Vice, a degenerate website magazine thing. And this was just it was a traditional Britain Group conference, and they were undercover filming it. And I would actually sat at the table with Generation Identity, and this girl was sat there from Vice in a wig and a pair of fake glasses, and it was just crazy how like simply she fit into the situation, and it didn't look dodgy at all. And you're always hearing about, like, you know, groups, DM groups and stuff on Discord or Twitter or whatever, and there's undercover people in there. So I don't think that we're being what's the word, like, too extreme in saying that things like this do end up with undercover agents in them. There's quite a lot of cases of it, really.
Yeah, definitely. And just to had one thought there. We know that governments set up false flags to start wars and stuff like that. Hello, America, and the Middle East, but and some other countries. But yeah, so if governments stage false flags in international territory, which is much more difficult than domestic territory, it isn't at all a stretch of the imagination to think that they do the exact same thing back at home to either gain more control over the public conscience or just create a pretext to do something and have that pretext there to justify it. So yeah, in my opinion, that's what national action was to some extent. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would agree. And also the fact that we've thought of it, that means the establishment's thought of it as well. So, it's definitely a possibility. I'm just going to move on to somebody raised a question about a further question about the EU army, that there's mixed views, and some on the right say we need it because of US-China dominance. I don't know. I mean, that was always countered in the past through bilateral alliances, and maybe if you're from like Luxembourg or some small nation like that, then fine. But people in bigger countries like France, Germany, and Britain won't go for that. It's not in historical context. The other thing, something else has come up, which is probably on a more positive note. What did you all make of the Polish Independence Day parade? So, Boris, as a sort of slightly related Slav, what do you reckon?
Slightly related? We're all related. Just kidding. But yeah, there's truth to that too. Well, the Polish independence. It's funny. I just came across this information today, but it seems like 80% of Polish media is actually in international hands, specifically German, allegedly. So, yeah, a lot of their media has done the MSM thing where they blame, well, not blame, where they just essentially lie through their teeth when they talk about the it's funny if you see on the ground pictures of people celebrating the independence of their country in Warsaw, the capital. I think the numbers ranged between 200,000 and 250,000 people at the maximum. So it was a gigantic number of people, far, far more than last year. And of course, it's the 100th anniversary of independence of a country that was wiped off the map a few times in the last century. So yeah, it's a very, very big and emotional topic back there. And yeah, the MSM did their thing again. They called them Nazis, fascists, bigots, everything. The one thing that they did is they used one tiny splinter of the whole event where some more extreme, shall we call them, groups showed up and they just shouted slogans like "Keep Poland white" or "Keep Europe white" or something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing. But yeah, the media used that to slander all 200,000 people, most of which were just normal, regular folks. And there were a lot of children there, a lot of families with small children. So yeah, that's there's not much to say. The MSN, yeah, they use any opportunity to slander them.
I think generally though it was a good advert for nationalism, and it's kind of, regardless of the ideological persuasions of who's involved or whatever and what signs they hold up, it was good to see some organized. I don't want to just say flag waving, but yeah, it was like a demonstration of pride. So
yeah, no, definitely more than flag waving. It was a national celebration of a big achievement, and it's it's something to aspire to for with us. Let's call ourselves fledgling nationalists. Let's say that Poland is in the heavyweight championship, and we're all catching up to that. So let's make them a model of what to strive for. Like, that's what's possible. But if Poland could do it, we all can do it.
Laura, what did you think about the Polish independence celebrations?
I think it's amazing optics, where it's dark and they've got all the red lights and the red and white flags. I think it looks absolutely brilliant. Huge audience as well. Have you guys got the figures for how many people were there? Because I don't know how many it was, but it looked like hundreds of thousands of people. It looked, when they have Remain Vote marches in London and they say it's like 500,000 people, it looked like 10 times bigger than that 500,000, although I think they lied, to be honest. And people have been saying all over social media that it's neo-Nazis and, the far right and white supremacists and stuff. And they've been getting completely ratioed. So they'll say that and they'll get like 300 likes from their anti-white friends. But then other people are posting pictures underneath in the comments of like old ladies in wheelchairs at the march, or there was a picture of some nuns carrying Polish flags and little children and stuff. And I just think it's really nice optics. And I can't complain. I'm actually jealous. I wish that we had something like that in England.
Yeah, and the media hacks are so disingenuous with this, and they think we're all so stupid as well, because like even people who are genuinely on the far right in Poland they don't like Nazis because their history is taught that the Nazis murdered a load of their people. So even the most radical of them are not like Hitler fans or any shit like that. So I think the media goes a bit over the top with this stuff. Just looking for another question we had on something we've already spoken about. When we spoke about the separatism thing, somebody asked, if globalism is one sovereign and nationalism is 196 sovereigns, why through separatism increasing the number of sovereigns in the world something to be avoided? Well, because it's a fair point that obviously it is a nationalist principle, self-determination. But at this point, the point we established was at this point, we don't have the luxury of splitting up into all our little quirky sub-regional nations, because we need collective power to change things. So no, that's like, no offense, but that's a dumb question. Somebody else in the chat asked specifically to Laura, so I'm going to direct this to Laura. Do you think we'll ever get to the point of, I want to say this in a way that's not going to get us shut down. I'm just going to say it. Do you think we'll ever get to the point of repatriating much of our immigrant population, Laura?
Well, it's necessary, unfortunately, because even if we closed our borders today and there was no more immigration, excuse me, we would still end up becoming a minority in our own country because of the disproportionate fertility rates. So, yeah, we have to, unless you want to sterilise people and say that they can't have children, which is more ethical, either sending them back home or sterilising them. I don't know, but it is necessary. We can't just close the borders. It's already too late. But it sounds like it's a really horrible thing, doesn't it? It sounds like you're going to kind of, in Batman, where it's like death or exile, and then they have to like leave and cross over the ice. I don't think it has to be done in such a brutal way. I think it can be done in quite an ethical way. I think that we can encourage people to want to leave. So one thing, for example, is if we controlled our own media again, we could instill a sense of racial pride in people. And if we stop bending over backwards for things like Islam and made it difficult to open mosques and do the hate preaching and things like that, then how many of them would actually want to live here? I think that people take advantage of us as a country because we're so weak. But if we weren't like that, then would they want to be here? I mean, for example, with Italy, the refugees that are in Germany, they were supposed to be sent back to Italy. And they were saying that they didn't want to go back because they're not looked after properly in Italy. So, I think the whole package would involve making it a voluntary thing, so that they actually want to go. We can offer cash incentives as well. These people have obviously got skills and stuff over here, if they could take the cash from here, if you look at the exchange rate of the country that they came from, then that could be worth quite a lot of money in their home country. So do I think it's necessary? Yes. Do I think it will happen? If it doesn't happen, then we will end up becoming a minority in our own country. So it has to. We have to make it happen.
If I could jump in here with the repatriation thing, it gets back to my point that I said one time about reading more books. Like during the Second World War, after the defeat of the Axis, on the territory that currently is Poland, that belonged, well, the northern part, that belonged to Germany, and it was arranged so that the Germans living there would be expelled, in effect, ethnically cleansed, all the way back into the German heartland. And so I'm not quite sure about the figures, but it was something, it was either 3 or 5 million Germans, and they were expelled during winter from a gigantic sort of land area, and they had to make that trek all the way to Germany, and hundreds of thousands of civilians died there. So, and that was done to weaken Germany, it was done for geopolitical reasons. So if something like that happened before, and population, the moving of populations by states or bigger powers because of war or geopolitics, or even the prevention of a next war, that's been done many, many times. So it depends on the demographics, and it depends on the political will and the political situation of the time, but it's something that has always happened, and if the situation comes to it, will happen again. It's really a cycle of history.
Yeah, there's definitely historical precedent for it. I mean, population exchanges have always happened. They happened in Northern Ireland, in Britain, in the past, since the Second World War. They happened after the war with Germans, like you said. It's not something that's actually that difficult. It's just about political will. And so the question really should be, do we have the political will? But, we'll see what happens in the future. I'm going to move on and I'm going to address this quickfire one, because if I don't address this, then someone's going to promote some crackpot's conspiracy theory about us. So here we go. Won't you risk being shut down if you talk about the tribe's role, I think we all know who they are, in promoting multicultural societies with open borders? I mean, there's always a danger with that, but we don't want to be these people who everybody says, oh, all they do is scream about Jews, because it is a bit psychotic. People do go a bit over the top with this stuff. Obviously, you can't minimize the problem, but it's a time and a place, and picking your moments to fight these battles. And we do fight the battles. If you read our articles, we do argue about this stuff all the time. So yeah, we might risk it, but we're going to try and be clever about it. So, whatever. Another one which has come in, I'm going to put to you guys. In what way do you differ in views or tactics from Generation Identity? I think the tactics one is pretty clear, because we're mostly in information. We like to spread information, and Generation Identity are on the streets trying to change the culture, or the political culture. But in terms of views, Laura, why do you think we differ ideologically from, if at all, from Generation Identity?
I think, oh God, how can I word this on YouTube? I think they focus on the ethno-cultural sense of things. So I think when you're saying ethno, obviously that means ethnicity. So I think that they're not civic nationalists, but I don't think that they say as openly as we do that we are ethno-nationalists. So we want an England for the English people, a Poland for the Polish, a South Africa. Well, that one's confusing, I guess, but we want the Afrikaans to be okay in South Africa, a Sweden for the Swedish. And we recognise the different ethnic groups and culture, whereas I think Generation Identity seem to focus a little bit more on the culture side of things. But I follow the Twitter account, and I know a couple of lads from there, but I don't really follow what they their statements and Martin Sellner and stuff. So I probably can't talk about it in too much depth. There's also a couple of topics that they won't touch, and I understand that they won't touch those topics because they want to appear as mainstream as possible and recruit as many people as possible. Obviously, they get more attention than us as well, so the media are always jumping down their throats and attacking anything that they say. So if they were to say anything about World War II, for example, that would be completely blown out of proportion, and they would shut down their funding and all sorts of things. So I do understand why they hold back. I'm not sure whether their members actually believe that stuff and just don't talk about it, or whether their members don't talk about it either. But I think that we just go a little bit further to the right or towards nationalism. And actually, the question that you were asked before this about talking about Jews and being shut down and stuff, the approach that we take now, and the approach that we said that we'd always take, was that we'd entirely tell the truth. So if somebody is a Jew, then we'll say that person is a Jew, but we're not going to go all hardcore, let's blame everything on the Jews, because that doesn't achieve anything. That just gets us shut down. So it's about getting the correct balance, really. We've all written articles where we've said that somebody's Jewish or this has had Jewish influence, and if it's a fact and you can back it up, then you're allowed to say that. But we don't want to be controversial just for the sake of being controversial, and hopefully we won't get shut down for stating facts, but who knows?
Yeah, I just wanted to clear up some misconceptions about GI. I can provide some illumination there. So GI, the idea of GI is to set up a chapter in every European country, and the idea is of every individual chapter is the promotion of that country's ethno-cultural identity. So the GI conception of identity is, of course, ethno-cultural. So there's an ethnic part, there's a cultural part. It's like sort of 50-50. Both are important. One is more important, the ethnic part, I have to say, because culture comes from that. But yeah, so a big misconception with them is that people think they're pan-European. And when people say pan-European, I think in most cases they mean just generic white, but that's not the case with GI. GI, every individual chapter is about promoting the ethnic and cultural identity of the individual nation, but also promoting friendship, a cooperation, a bettering of relations between all the nations, between all the people, a way to talk about history, talk about the past, and a way to fix our problems and fights and squabbles and hatreds of the past.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in what you've said. The one thing I would say, though, is that I just want to clear this point up in case anybody was wondering that GI, they do have factions which are under the influence of, or strongly under the influence of Gidam Fay's writings on this topic. And as such, they, at least privately, some of them do advocate for a pan-European imperial state in the future. And whether that's their mainstream position or a faction or whatever, just to clarify, that is a big way in which we would differ, because we are absolutely not for any kind of pan-European superstate. It's just, and that's a non-negotiable point. Get my words out, and we never would be. So, if they do have those views, then we don't agree with them. So I think let's start with that one. Let me see what else we got to deal with here. We've had some questions coming in on the live chat, so keep them coming and we'll get around to them if we can. We've got a fair few. That's about a personal guy, so we're not gonna answer that one. Okay, I'm gonna ask this for my own curiosity here. Somebody's asked, live debate with Anne Jenkins when? Who the hell is Anne Jenkins?
No idea.
Boris?
No idea who Anne Jenkins is.
I have no idea. Should we Google it?
Maybe.
I don't.
I don't think there's anyone called Anne Jenkins.
Okay, I think we're just gonna decide that nobody has any idea who she is. So, let's move on. This is a good one. Well, this is sort of a conversational question that you'd ask if you were at the pub. But did you guys read about the Day X that was foiled in Germany? Shows how much pressure is building under the surface. We can deal with this quickly, but for anybody that doesn't know, the Day X thing was basically the German security forces have thwarted a plot by around 200 serving and ex-members of the German Special Forces, which is like their version of the SAS. And they had this plan, like when Law and Order broke down because of diversity, they had this plan to like kill all these politicians, allegedly. Not really much to say about that, other than, I guess, you can understand how frustrations boil over sometimes. I don't know what you guys think.
I don't understand the question. Sorry, can you say it again?
Yeah, well, it was more of a talking point than a question, but somebody asked basically what we thought of that Day X thing that happened in Germany. You know, the police operation and the alleged 200 special forces dudes who were planning to kill politicians.
Oh, I don't even know about this. Yeah, you'll have to send me some information if that's all right after the stream, and I'll have a look. But yeah, I don't know about this, I'm afraid.
Sure. Then I can jump in, I guess. Well, I read about it, and apparently it was Day X was supposed to be when there was apparently some sort of faction in the German Secret Service, and this was people from all sort of branches of the armed forces, and it was people who were disillusioned with the current system, and apparently they wanted to do some sort of coup. I can't remember currently the targets. I think it was the foreign minister and some other big high up official. Well, what to say here? We don't support any kind of regime change in this sense. I mean, if they had carried something like that out, it would have created pure chaos in the country, and it would be the perfect way to kill sort of any discussion about, I guess, nationalism or stuff like that in Europe, because, well, yeah, basically because of that.
Yeah, it's well, either way, it makes good viewing. I tell you that.
Definitely. It's accelerationism.
Yeah, I mean, we have to be careful exactly what we say on that, but it does make interesting viewing. Just to confirm to somebody, no, we are not holding Neil hostage. To somebody who said that in the chat. Somebody else
we can neither confirm nor deny that.
Somebody else said, we've already dealt with this, but I'm gonna bring it up anyway. Is pan-European nationalism advocating for a white imperium the way forward? I think we've established that that's not our position at all. And let's face it, I mean that would mean, that would be a total mess. It just wouldn't be very good, I don't think.
Yeah. It's also sort of unattainable in Europe, and you know, this talk of a European imperium, it's a bit globalist, I have to admit. Like, the sort of idea of it isn't necessarily bad, but whenever empire was tried in Europe, well, I mean anywhere, that empire has to have one sort of core culture, and since Europe does not have one core culture, that would have to be one of the already established cultures, and just by virtue of history and geopolitics and everything, it would be one of the big four or big five, I guess, right now, right? And that such empires have already been tried, and they eventually failed, collapsed.
Yeah, these things, you know, throwing people together with different cultures, it doesn't work. And I know a lot of Americans advocate for this pan-European idea and white imperium or whatever, but I mean, if you go out, I've been to a number of places in Europe. You go around Europe, particularly Southern Europe, and as a British person or as a German person or a Swedish person, you go to like Cyprus or Greece or even somewhere like Romania, and it's just like we don't have a clue about each other's languages. In Greece they have a different alphabet. Culturally, they're so far removed. They follow the Greek Orthodox Church, and we're Protestants or atheists or whatever. There's just so many cultural problems there that, like, unless you wanted a permanent state of civil unrest, then I wouldn't go near the whole white imperium thing. You could have an Anglosphere imperium maybe, but again, that's got problems culturally. So I don't think so. Somebody asked in the chat, pan-European state or Islamic caliphate, as if it's not a binary choice. You can have nations working together to deal with their problems that doesn't involve having a bloody imperial superstructure in the middle. It's just, it's not a binary choice. I'm just going to have a look for some more questions we've got in here. What's going on in here?
Sure. And while you find that question, just wanted to shoot out some quick facts about the diversity, shall we say, of Europe. Like, we've got more than 30 different languages, and between those languages we have 3 different alphabets, and between all of that we've got more than three big sort of faiths. Christianity, but then Catholicism, Orthodoxy, and Protestantism, and then within those you have different sects. So it's a ridiculous amount of diversity, and that is the way that Europe has always been, and we're not going to throw that away for some idea of imperium.
Yeah, and I think on that one, the pan-European imperium is something that's it's an ideological and theoretical point that you only advocate if you have no idea about the lives of ordinary people. It's if you actually get on the ground and deal with ordinary people in your own country and in other countries, you wouldn't advocate it, because it just won't work. I think we've made a breakthrough on Anne Jenkins, by the way, guys. Laura knows Laura, tell us about Anne Jenkins.
Well, Neil just posted her Twitter profile in the Defend Europa group chat, and she's basically this girl on Twitter that's been stalking me for the last 4 days. So I don't know when the person in the chat said her name, I didn't recognise it, but she's just, I muted her, and then 2 days later she was still tweeting about me, and obviously I couldn't see it, so I had to block her this morning. But she's just basically been stalking me for the last 4 days. I don't really know what else to say about her. She's a vegan intersectional feminist who's married to an African man, and if you look at her pin tweet, it's her and her African husband, and she's just the opposite of me. I answered a few tweets because I was being polite, but then I realised that she was just, do you know when you just can't get through to someone because you're basically a different species, because everything about you is different? She's just basically been stalking my Twitter for the last 4 days, and I've had to block her. She's been reading Defend Europa and saying that we're fake news. So I've asked her about 4 times, give me one thing on the website that's fake news, and she's not been able to give me anything. So I'd love, she can come on and debate me if she wants, but I don't think she will for some reason. But yeah, she's just an American feminist who is really strange.
Yeah, I think given what you've said about her, I think we'll probably avoid having her on the show. You never know. It's not that we like to have people that agree with us all the time, but at the same time, we don't want psychopaths either. So, but if you do have any sensible suggestions for people to invite on who might not agree with the things we say, we would welcome that, because one of the criticisms we've actually had of the podcast is that there's not enough contrarianism. There's not enough counterpoints. So we might try and do that. Somebody's asked if any of us will be appearing on Millennial. I won't personally, but I think Laura might be.
Yeah, excuse me. I'm going on with Alex, I believe, at Defend Europa. So was asked me if I wanted to go on and represent Defend Europa, and asked me to invite somebody else who wasn't British, so that we can have a bit of a variation. So Alex said yes. So hopefully he will still be up for that. Yes, so that'll be good. It's what was is a friend of mine. I think we've only done one live stream together, and it was the British Blood stream that we did with No White Guilt and the Great Order on their channel, and we did that with Morgoth and Duke of Durham. That was a really fun stream. But I've never spoke to to Woz kind of just as Defend Europa, so either just me on my own or just me and Alex on a live stream, I mean. So yeah, it should be good. I'm looking forward to it. There's some really good guests as well. He's shown me the list. I don't think I'm supposed to mention who's on there, but there are some really, really exciting guests on this year, so it's definitely something to look forward to.
Yeah, he tends to have some good people on that, and I know Carolyn is doing a live stream around them that I'm going to be on, and I think Red Eyes will probably do their streams and stuff like that. So yeah, there'll be some good YouTube content around then. Somebody's asked, is DETV, that's us, going to be moving into YouTube videos? Yes, that's something we're looking at. Laura's looking at that. We do the podcast, but we might make some, I don't want to say propaganda, but you know what I mean, like educational videos or informative videos or whatever. What else have we got in the chat? I think I can't actually find it, but I've definitely read a moment ago. Oh, here we go. Do you think the Brexiteers in government will cuck, or will the government fall? So this is interesting for non-English listeners, who are not quite aware of what's going on. There's a big, basically the Brexit thing in this country is a total mess. But the government's trying to sort it out, and ministers are resigning, and the Brexiteers don't like it, and the Remainers don't like it. So, in answer to your question, I think the government will actually fall, but they'll probably just scrape through the deal, and then after it's signed in blood, as it were, after it can't go back, then the knives will come out, and the current government will fall. So, I think that'll happen with that. I'm just going to check. Here we go. Will DE have a national meetup? Well, it wouldn't be national because there's people from like all corners of Europe here, but I don't know what you guys think about actually having an in real life meetup.
Definitely, we'll have to do it sometime, but
I would like to do it too.
Yeah.
The difficulty is all being in separate countries, and we Defend Europa is self-funded. I mentioned that earlier, but I'll say it again. And none of us get paid anything for Defend Europa. We're all volunteers, and lots of us have full-time jobs and families and stuff. So it would be a case of picking a location that worked for all of us and a time that worked for all of us. And there's about 35 people at Defend Europa, but some of us are a lot more kind of closer and friends, and then there's a couple of other people who just like pop in every now and again and write the odd article. So I guess security would be a reason as something to be concerned about as well, just to make sure that everybody was who they said that they were. But yeah, I'm definitely up for it in the future. I'm losing my voice, sorry, I have a bit of a cold.
I'm going to stop taking questions now, because we've had a few since we last asked for, any last questions. And I guess we could be here all night. But so I'm going to just finish with the ones we've got. We've got a few more left. So somebody asked before, is Bolsonaro preparing a military takeover for January? I have no idea. But the other one about Bolsonaro is, did you guys see the Brazilian right-wing death squad who executed the Brazilian bank robbers? I didn't see it, but it's great. But I didn't see it. What did you? Either of you guys see that?
No, it's actually new news to me. But if it did happen, sounds based.
Yeah, I didn't either. One to look up, I think.
Okay, well, I think our basic position on this would be, if Bolsonaro wants to organize squads for a deadly purpose of a right-wing persuasion, we would not be too disappointed. What else is there? Maybe some of you could write a guide how to be good at writing articles. I never took any class like that in school, and I'm interested in this in the future. Well, you know, I guess that's kind of like asking a master craftsman, I'm not saying they were master craftsmen, but a master craftsman to share his trade secrets. But however, on a serious note, maybe, I don't know. You guys, what do you think?
Well, I'm not averse to the idea, but as you said, it would be a bit like the magician showing his act.
I think we usually do when people come on board, because we don't ask for people with any prior writing experience. We just ask for people that have got similar views. They don't even need to be exactly the same, and somebody who has a passion for the same causes that we have a passion for. So we do have people join us that have, I mean, obviously you have to have a little bit of writing ability at least, but we do have people join us, and we do offer them support on that and help them increase their or improve rather their writing style. And also remember, we have a lot of people at Defend Europa who English isn't their first language, so everything gets edited and stuff anyway. Whether we'd write something to help people do that in the future, yeah, potentially. I mean, we do have a self-improvement part on the website, so if enough people were interested in us writing an article or making a video about that, then it's definitely something that we could do. But I'm not sure what kind of an audience there would be for something like that. I'm not sure how many people would be interested in it.
Yeah, one thing I'd say about that as well, excuse me, is that so there's a difference in this game. There's a difference between writing a good article and an article that's going to get a lot of views and exposure, because sometimes for maximum propaganda purposes, the best article is one that is like 5 lines, 200 words with just quick fire key information. And you don't have to be a good writer to do that. You just have to be able to write concisively. You know, you have to be able to condense information and put it across in a readable way. However, if you want to write a beautiful piece of written prose that's like 1,500, 2,000 words, it's more difficult to actually get that to a wide audience. And unless it's a really incredible piece, which, you know, most of us can only throw one up that's really incredible every now and then, it won't get the exposure it deserves. So yeah, there's a difference between good propaganda and good writing, I think. Just moving on. So, somebody's asked about Anne Jenkins again. We are probably not going to invite Anne Jenkins onto this show, just so you know. Last few, right. Isn't Neil a billionaire? I cannot confirm nor deny this. Will these live streams be a regular thing? You know, I'm actually quite enjoying this, so I hope so, but it depends. What do you guys think? Do you guys want to do this more often? Maybe get like Alex and a few other people on?
Yeah,
definitely. Then it would be much more spicy.
I think it makes us a bit more approachable, you know, engaging with the audience and letting them get to know us a little bit as well, and also us being allowed to get to know what they want and what they're interested in, because we normally do record the podcasts on a weekend. The episode's about 30 minutes long, and then we release it on a Tuesday night, and we normally get a few hundred views and stuff. But I think if we were able to engage with the audience and the readers of Defend Europa, I think that would be better. So I'm all for doing them live, definitely.
Yeah, it's good fun. So yeah, I hope we will do this again. And like Laura said, we probably, you know, it's probably going to happen in the future. Right, I've got one more question. Sorry, Boris, this is kind of a British thing, but somebody's asked, what political party do you think people should support in the UK if they are based? Right, ideologically, you've got to say like probably the British National Party, or UKIP are making some good noises again, but we'll see. But in terms of in elections at the moment, it's not really about political party you should support. It's about the party you should oppose, and that is the governing party and the Labour Party. So I would say to British people, forget about being an ideological purist when it comes to a general election at the moment. Vote against the people you don't like tactically. Don't you know, because most places, you won't get the option on the ballot to vote for people you like anyway. So don't vote for the Tories, don't vote for the Labour Party, basically. Laura, what do you think about
that? Yeah, I agree, really. I just think I despise all the parties in Britain. I suppose for Britain and UKIP are okay, but then they annoy me because they just cook on certain issues. I mean, I do like Gerard Batten, to be honest. I think he's kind of our guy. So yeah, I agree with what you said. I don't really have anything else to add.
Yeah, I think UKIP under Gerard Batten, the guy's signalled that he's open to a racial tone to the discussions, which is a positive thing. And I mean, Nigel Farage would never go near that. So, we're making headway in that. Just looking at a few comments on this, somebody said Britain First is good on immigration, but very pro-Israel. Britain First, they don't stand in elections, and they look like idiots, and they just get jailed. So the leaders are good and they do good things, but the followers, they make mistakes. Amory Waters, no, forget. This is Serena JB in the chat. I don't want to patronize anybody here, but for Britain and Amory Waters are bloody liberals. The only reason Amory Waters is scared of Islam is she doesn't care about British culture. She just doesn't want to be thrown off a building for being homosexual. So I don't believe that For Britain have our best interests at heart. A couple of people have mentioned Lauren Southern's documentary Borderless and her recent work exposing the pro-refugee activists. Yeah, that's going to be really good, really interesting, and hopefully it'll get a wide audience and continue spreading the truth. For Britain did stuff. Yeah, For Britain do say some pro-white stuff. I just don't think that if you want to build a new future, that you wouldn't look to them. But maybe as a disruption tactic, yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, they're still talking about this Anne Jenkins woman. Jesus. Okay, we'll write to Anne Jenkins if that'll make you happy.
I would love to debate Anne Jenkins because she thinks that do you know when you kind of have a bit of a Twitter debate with someone and it doesn't go well for them, like it didn't go well for her, they just make up what happens. Like they'll say, they'll just say things, but then they won't provide a source or back it up. Like when she said that Defend Europa was full of fake news, but she couldn't tell me one thing on the website that was fake news. And I'd love to debate her, actually. I'd love to get her on here and debate her because I think I would win. But I don't think she'll come on. There's a time difference for a start. She's in America, and she's just the complete opposite of everything that we stand for. So I think it would probably be good for comedy value, but rather than that, I don't think we'd gain anything from it, or I don't think we'd learn anything from it either.
This is when meme magic makes an anon on Twitter something that we discuss on the podcast. Just think about that for a second.
I think these guys have memed Anne Jenkins into our. We're gonna have to mention her every bloody week now. It's gonna be like an Easter egg for each of our episodes.
No, I think we'll make her our mascot. That would be funny.
Oh, get a little doll of Anne Jenkins. Hey guys.
Definitely.
Somebody else debates Sargon. That's just funny. The only reason I would have Sargon on here is to laugh at him for an hour and then hang up. That's literally it. I don't know about what you guys think about this.
Sargon. Just, he's sort of one of those on the rabbit hole pipeline. But then again, he does so much counter signaling and his individualism. He just speaks about individualism to the nth degree, and it's just meme worthy how people in 2018, almost 2019, still don't understand that we've got too much individualism, and it's hampering us. You can't be an individual when everyone else plays in groups.
Yeah, and I think JF made a good point on one. I don't normally listen to the guy, but he made a good point on one of his streams about Sargon that actually the way he advocates individualism, he does it in an ideologically collectivist way, or something like that. So there's flaws in his argument, but no, we have not. Well, I haven't read Locke. To somebody asking in the comments.
Have you ever read Locke?
Exactly, and no, I would. I'm gonna burn Locke's books for Sargon, and we're gonna film
spicy.
it. But on that note, I think we've. I'm only joking, by the way. Sargon, I don't hate him that much. I wouldn't really laugh at him, but
no, it's all just for the memes.
It's just good fun. But I think on that note, we're gonna call it a night, and I hope you've all enjoyed it because it's been good fun to do, and
a lot of fun.
Exactly, it's been a lot of fun, and hopefully we'll do this again, and you guys can ask some questions, and we can have a good laugh. So yeah, thanks for that, guys.
Thanks, everybody. We'll do it the same again next week, maybe on Tuesday night, just a quick hour stream. It seems to work well.
Yeah. Just everyone, give us some comments, give us some feedback. We'd love to do it again.
Yeah, great. So on that note, I think we're going to say goodnight and turn the stream off now. So thanks for listening, everybody, and your comments have been much appreciated.
Bye, everyone.
Bravo.